Hey class, this is Mr. Hayes on an asynchronous Friday. Hope this video finds you well. I want to begin with my announcements and agenda page as I talk you through some upcoming due dates and introduce you to our brand new unit, Hero's Journey. On the left, our last Eric Clapton song is a very famous one, I Shot the Sheriff, which he recorded along with Bob Marley. So you can maybe take a listen to each and figure out which one you like best. Both are iconic songs. Our homework are just kind of two announcements that you know of by now and should be on your radar. Lucid Press Spread must be finished by Monday at noon. At that point, I will print out all of them that have not already been printed. So at that point, you cannot work on them any longer. It will be considered your finished product, whatever you have on Lucid Press by Monday at noon, and they will be printed. January Independent Reading Log is also due on Monday, but at midnight. Within this video, I'm going to preview the Hero's Journey Unit 4, talk you through an example with Spider-Man, get you acclimated to what Hero's Journey means, and introduce you to what we'll be doing over the next 5-6 weeks or so here in ELA. So let's move forward. You're going to see here just outline of what's expected of you over the course of this asynchronous Friday. It's really just watching this video that you're watching right now, which soon enough will be placed right here after number 1. And then when I'm done going through all of this, please watch this video. It's a TED Ed on what makes a hero. It'll give you a little bit more background on traits of a typical hero. It also takes you through some of the steps of this hero's journey cycle and reinforces what I will talk about over the next few minutes in this video. So this is an important supplemental video. Please take a look at this before you close up shop today. Unit 4 is Hero's Journey. We'll be taking a look at 2 mentor texts, maybe 3. I'll talk about that in a moment. Mentor texts will start with Black Panther, which we'll watch next week. 2 days that you're in person. For the A students, it will be Tuesday and Monday. And then the B students will be Thursday, Friday. We're not going to be able to watch the entire movie, but we'll watch the large majority of it as we follow T'Challa's hero's journey cycle throughout the film. We're also going to be reading a book called Unwind by Neal Shusterman that will follow the hero's journey steps around the main character, Connor. And we're going to also possibly look at Shipbreaker, which is an LDG book, but it's got such strong writing, we may look at that as a third mentor text towards the writing phase of the unit as well. Some assessments that you can look forward to. You will be doing LDG discussions, so I'm going to collect your notes. We're going to do some reader responses through that cycle. So your LDG will certainly be one of the grades over the course of Unit 4. We're also going to be doing a brief Hero's Journey creative project towards the end of our reading phase before our writing phase. And then our main writing assignment is a chance for you to write fiction, where you will invent a hero and place them within a couple of steps of the hero's journey. It has been a favorite among students over the last few years. It's a chance for you to write a different kind of genre, a different type of writing than we've done this year. What is the hero's journey? You're probably wondering. I've brought that term up a few times now. And it kind of boils down to these 4 bullet points. A hero's journey is a main character's exploration in discovering something important about both him or herself and the world around them. So they have some sort of inner discovery, but also have some sort of outward goal or outward task that will potentially save humanity or save their community. So it's both an internal conflict they have to solve and an external conflict at the same time. They must face challenges, figure out who's on their side, allies, who's not, enemies, and oftentimes encounter grave danger, big obstacles they have to overcome to discover that important thing about him or herself and save the world around them. They're responsible for not just their own livelihood, but as I said before, their entire community. There's more at stake than just themselves. And it typically follows 12 steps of the hero's journey cycle, almost as if they're going around a clock. So the hero will start at cycle 1, or step 1, I should say, and continue the cycle all the way 1 through 12, while they return to the beginning again. This is a hero's journey cycle. So they will begin in something called the ordinary world. They will have a call to adventure. They're going to hesitate, but they eventually do take that call. They go on this adventure. They meet a mentor who will help guide them. They cross the threshold from what they're used to, their ordinary world, their safe environment, to something that encounters grave danger, that puts them in an uncomfortable position. They have certain tests that kind of lead up to the final exam where they sort out their allies and enemies. They start to really transform as they approach that final ordeal, that big exam, that major test. There's some sort of reward for passing that test. And then they return back to their ordinary world to complete the cycle. By beginning with that road back, they have some sort of resurrection or atonement, or they're born anew based on being successful in their ordeal and also learning something new about themselves. They're refreshed, they're resurrected as a new person, a new hero, before they return finally to that ordinary world. So largely, your hero's journey cycle will follow these steps in this exact order. You're going to notice that the main character in your LDG book, in Black Panther with T'Challa, and in our mentor text with Connor and Unwind follow these steps almost to a T. Another example that you might be familiar with that follows the hero's journey is through Spider-Man. Now, Spider-Man is just one example of many, many, many books, many movies that follow the hero's journey cycle. I'm talking Star Wars does, Lion King does, Harry Potter does. It's an archetype, which means it's something that's been around a very long time. Many authors over the course of the history of literature and film have taken a main character, a protagonist, or a hero, and taken them through these steps. It creates a lot of drama and conflict. And it's just an archetype, meaning it's something that's been around a long time, been replicated a lot. And so a lot of these popular movies that you know may have a hero who follows these steps. Spider-Man is one example of that. Peter starts in his ordinary world. It's a place that's common or familiar to the main character. However, there's something lingering beneath. The hero is uneasy or uncomfortable for some reason, and it causes the observer to be sympathetic to their situation. Most heroes are ones that you want to root for. They have some flaws for sure, but they have a good side to them as well that you want to see succeed. There is stress in their life, and you want them to be able to overcome that stress. You sympathize with their situation. In the ordinary world, we learn some details about the background of the hero, some really important information about who their family is, their personal fears and struggles, how they view life, their friends in their ordinary world. This makes them human, and we can relate to these same problems or issues. The ordinary world step is used to develop humanity in the hero and make them seem empathetic and someone that we can relate to and, in essence, root for. Then there's a call to adventure. Something happens that forces the hero to make a decision on whether to accept that call. There's, as I said, a call to action, a direct threat maybe to his or her safety, family that he or she cares about, their community or way of life. There's some sort of upheaval, and the hero faces that decision. Do I leave my ordinary world where I'm somewhat comfortable and undertake the quest, or do I resist that and not take on that challenge? Well, spoiler alert, they're going to take on the challenge eventually. Otherwise, that book or movie would end pretty abruptly without much drama to it. Wouldn't be too interesting. But they do still have a moment of hesitation, that refusal of the call. While the hero may be eager to take on the quest, they have lingering fears and doubts. Again, they're human. They've got the same fears and insecurities that we do. Is the quest too much to handle? Is there early trouble brewing that might cause them to say, maybe I can't do this? This humanizes the hero, makes them vulnerable, makes us want to root for them even more. As they are considering taking on the challenge, or sometimes after they already have, they meet their mentor, just like Uncle Ben here for Peter. In a time of need, the mentor provides guidance to the hero. The hero may be given an important object, insight into the dilemma the hero faces. This boosts their self-confidence and allows them to take on this challenge. After initially refusing it, now they start to believe in themselves based on the mentor's sage advice. This gives them the internal strength to take on the challenge. So then Peter crosses the threshold to fully embrace being Spider-Man. He goes from the ordinary world to this special world. Now, in this case, he doesn't really change locations. It's still in New York City, at least in the movie. But it's special because he's now taken on this persona of Spider-Man. It's different than being Peter Parker. This action signifies the hero's commitment to the journey and whatever it may have in store. He is or she is all in. There's no turning back now. Through crossing the threshold, Peter or Spider-Man meets his tests, allies, and enemies. So it's almost like if you're taking a class, you've got some quizzes before the final exam. That's what these tests are. They test the hero's mettle and their internal and external strength before their final exam. It toughens them up even more. And through those tests, he or she will meet allies. Who can they depend on? Enemies. Who is going to be against them? Who's going to stand in their way? So the hero sorts out allegiances, who is on his or her side and who is not in this special world. That's where Harry comes in, Mary Jane comes in, etc. Then the approach. So the approaches are all the preparations that the hero must take on before their major test. It's leading up to that final exam. It builds anticipation. It strengthens the hero's resolve. The climactic moment is their biggest test yet, that ordeal. It could be a dangerous physical test, like when Spider-Man has to decide whether to save the trolley full of tourists or Mary Jane. The Green Goblin sets it up where he has to make this difficult decision. It's a deep inner crisis the hero must face to survive or succeed. Some of the original fears during the call to adventure may resurface. Some of those insecurities that we learned about the hero early on in step 2, they resurface again, and the hero must overcome them in order to fully succeed. During the ordeal, there could be a moment where they come to a near-death experience or symbolically die, meaning they don't actually perish, but they have a big enough setback where it looks like they're going to be done for, like they failed the test. And it's like, how can they possibly bounce back from this? They end up bouncing back for the most part, but that's why it's called a symbolic death. It looks like they're done for, but they find a way to get back up off the ground and go back to the ordeal and try to pass that big final test again. This is where the hero, all they've learned through their experiences and the skills they've attained through the approach, through their time in the special world, they have to use those skills to defeat their mortal enemy. After the ordeal is completed, the hero emerges with some sort of reward as a result of conquering their biggest fear and passing their big test. It's some sort of prize. It can be, Mary Jane loving Spider-Man or Peter back, or it can come in other forms. It can come in the form of an object, like the Sorcerer's Stone in Harry Potter, a secret. A lot of different ways the reward can manifest itself. In the case of Spider-Man, of course, it's saving Mary Jane and becoming the hero that he set out to be. The last 3 steps happen pretty quickly. It rounds out the end of your book, or in the case of Spider-Man, the movie. The hero is driven to complete the adventure, or they leave the special world to be sure the reward is brought back home. They take that reward and they start their return back to where they began. Often there might be one last final test, some sort of sense of urgency that brings danger back to the mission. They're not quite out of the woods yet, but oftentimes the hero is so confident at this point and equipped with so much skill, they can easily take that on. And the final 2 steps are the resurrection and the return with the elixir, is what it's called. This is one last possible climactic moment where the hero returns to the ordinary world a changed person. They're resurrected new. And this brings fresh hope to those the hero left behind, often in that ordinary world, where they can help solve the community's problems or provide a new perspective for the community for everyone to consider. That can often happen in the dystopian novels that we'll read for LDGs. So those are the 12 steps of the hero's journey. By the end of our Black Panther viewing and your LDG books, you're going to know these down pat. You're going to have these pretty much memorized because I'll return to them so often. If you want to kind of challenge yourself a little bit, if you love Lion King and Harry Potter, for example, you know those movies like the back of your hand, see if you can figure out which steps of the hero's journey follow which part in those movies. You're going to see it works out pretty well with those 2. And I mean, Harry Potter, the first one, the Sorcerer's Stone. So that is the hero's journey cycle. Just wanted to give you a preview of what we will look out for with Black Panther and T'Challa next week, and eventually your LDG books following that, as we look at it through not just the movie next week, but also our books, and eventually you'll be writing about a hero that you invent and taking them through a few of these steps in the cycle. Monday at noon, Lucid Press must be finished. Monday by midnight, Independent Reading Log must be submitted. Please get those things done. I hope you have a wonderful weekend.